This thrilling story begins by showing a very ancient place. All around the walls of this place are strange artworks. From ancient artifacts to various unique paintings, everything is present here. After showing it in detail for a while, we learn that these artworks mention a war, a battle that was fought many years ago. But what connection do these ancient pieces have to the present? That remains a secret, which we will soon discover. Now we are shown a scene from the present time. A German director named Merryill is shooting different movies. Merryill has even won awards for being the best director because he had created many blockbuster films across genres, including horror. Big producers preferred to cast Merryill as the director. But after making so many films, Merryill no longer felt any excitement. He started feeling that he should make a film based on real events. Merryill also had a dream project called Dracula. He was a huge fan of Dracula. At that time, many tales about Dracula were circulating. It was said that Dracula still existed on Earth, surviving by drinking human blood. That's why Merryill thought, if I make a film on this, more people will engage with my work. But when Merryill shared this idea with several people, they didn't think it was a good one. As a result, Merryill had to face some difficulties. Now we are shown many crew members shooting a scene. Naturally, it was being directed by Merryill. They were taking pictures of a beautiful actress named Babe. Babe was an actress from a romantic movie who performed very well. At first, Merryill did his job properly, but then he asked his crew to stop. He took a short break and went directly to Babe. He explained that they might have to put the project on hold because he needed to focus on completing his Dracula project as soon as possible. Babe then talks to Merryill and says that she wants to go with him. She's received offers from many places, but she only wants to work with Merryill. Merryill thinks that he could offer her a good role too. He agrees to consider it and leaves from there. At a party attended only by top investors and producers, Merrill's producer was also present, discussing the Dracula movie. The producers had already invested a significant amount of money, and Merryill had started working on the film some time ago. But there were some things about the movie that Merryill knew and hadn't shared with the producer. He only said, "Our movie is turning out great." Merryill had already finalized the cast for the movie, which included people from different regions. His idea was to take his crew to a completely different and isolated place to shoot the film. Since it was going to be a horror movie, Merryill had already envisioned the entire theme. Many people at the party were asking the producer what kind of movie it was, but Merryill hadn't shared much with even him. Soon, the entire team set off toward their destination. On the way, Merryill noticed a piece of glass in his bag. Inside the glass, there was something red, as if it were blood. This was the point where strange things started happening. Merryill and the others ignored it and continued on, stopping briefly before arriving at their temporary base. They had to stay there for a few days before reaching the final location. The terrifying part was that the place they were staying in looked like ruins, completely dark and eerie, more like a haunted house than a hotel. Unfortunately, they had no choice but to spend a few days there. Merryill had already instructed his crew members and cameraman to work with a limited budget. He wanted to make this film in a way that people could emotionally connect with it. The cameraman was ready to handle things, but their scriptwriter raised a concern. Based on the scenes, the number of characters was very low. They would need more people to make it work. At that point, Merryill said, "You all will participate too." The scriptwriter, cameraman, and others were shocked. None of them had any acting experience. How could they be part of such a big project? No one could understand Merrill's idea. But since he was the director, they had no choice but to go along with whatever he said. Merryill had also provided thorough training to the main character of his movie, which allowed them to begin shooting from the very next day. At night, for some unknown reason, the main character was feeling quite scared and called the cameraman. He claimed to have heard strange sounds, screams that resembled those of a ghost. The cameraman told the main character to let it go and get some rest, calling it childish nonsense. He reminded him that he had a shoot the next morning and needed to be well rested. The next day, Merryill began filming with his entire camera team. In the movie, the main character played Babe's husband, meaning he would spend some time at this place before eventually meeting Babe in the storyline. As Merrill's crew started shooting, an unexpected interruption occurred. The landlady of the place arrived. She forced them to stop filming and told them that Merryill had removed all the crosses that were originally installed around the location for protection. She warned that removing those crosses could lead to disastrous events. The landlady hinted at dark forces, evil energies that would not enter as long as the symbols of God were in place. Despite her warning, Merrill's team reassured her that nothing supernatural could happen. They were just going to shoot for a few days. Merryill then moved on to the second shooting location, which was an abandoned castle. The castle was enormous, and the main character was supposed to enter it alone. The cameramen had all arrived, but the producer confronted Merrill and questioned him, saying, "None of this was in the script. How can you just change it like this?" Merrill replied that he wanted the scenes to feel completely realistic. He hadn't even told the main actor the full details in advance. Then Merrill introduced a new character, his Dracula partner, named Shrek. Shrek was going to play the villain in the film. The scene was that the main character would slowly enter the castle, and Dracula, i.e., Shrek, would follow him inside. After convincing the producer, Merrill resumed shooting, and he got the perfect shot in just one take. That meant their work for the day was done, and they could all return to the hotel. Merrill told all the crew members to take a rest. The producer was still stunned, especially by the fact that the man named Shrek had absolutely no acting experience, and yet Merrill had accepted him for such a crucial role. Meanwhile, the cameraman had to go back inside the castle to capture various shots that would later be used for different scenes in the movie. During this process, for some unknown reason, Shrek was shown following the cameraman in a strange, unsettling manner. A little while later, when some of the crew members entered the castle, they found the cameraman lying unconscious on the ground. They quickly carried him to a safer place and tried to treat his injuries. The cameraman said that someone had attacked him from behind. Everyone assumed it was just a coincidence, so no one paid much attention and continued preparing for the next day's shoot. But when the landlady came to check on the cameraman, she seemed to sense something, like dark forces were surrounding him. However, she didn't tell anyone and left immediately. For the first time, Merrill brought Shrek onto the main set. Everyone was shocked to see him, as Shrek always stayed in character. It looked like he was already acting, even when the cameras weren't rolling. Merrill explained to everyone that Shrek was a method actor. He fully immersed himself into every scene and played his part with intense realism. Once the full script was shared, the crew began filming a scene where Shrek and the main character were to have a conversation. They were instructed to follow the script exactly. But Shrek started going off script. He noticed a locket the main character was wearing, which had Babe's photo inside. He stared at it intensely and began behaving oddly. Merrill became disappointed with Shrek because he wasn't following the screenplay. When Merrill yelled at him, for the first time, we saw Shrek get visibly angry. It seemed like he was about to attack Merrill. Meanwhile, the cameraman was becoming increasingly weak, as if his body was undergoing some strange changes. Now we're shown Shrek, who is speaking to an unknown man. The man's face is not revealed, but he hands Shrek a bottle containing a red liquid, something that looked like blood. Shrek takes the bottle, laughs, and sets off to do his work. It was clear from the scene that whatever Shrek was doing, he was being guided by this mysterious figure. Shrek even openly acknowledged to the man that he was the real Dracula, the one who had survived for centuries by drinking human blood. Meanwhile, we see Merrill continuing with the next shoot. He places the main character and Shrek opposite each other and begins directing the scene according to the script. Shrek's performance is absolutely flawless. He never breaks character, not even for a second. During a scene, the main character accidentally cuts his hand, and blood starts pouring out. Seeing the blood, Shrek loses control and attacks him. That's because Shrek is actually a real vampire. He cannot resist the sight of human blood, as it's what keeps him alive. Everyone panics. This wasn't part of the script, then why was Shrek attacking for real? The crew tries to stop the scene, but at that moment, the electricity goes out. Taking advantage of the chaos, Shrek first attacks the main character, and then immediately leaps onto the cameraman, who was likely already infected. It was said that anyone bitten by Shrek would also turn into a vampire. After a few moments, Merrill and the others managed to pull Shrek away and begin tending to the injured cameraman. But his face had changed. It now looked completely wild, almost like he had lost his mind. Merrill now wanted to have a serious talk with Shrek, so he asked him to stay back for a while. Then Merrill took the cameraman to a safe place, along with some of the producers. Meanwhile, we see Shrek watching the footage captured during the shoot, scenes from the cameras and videos. For the first time, he sees a photo of a sunrise. Vampires become weak during the daytime. If sunlight touches their bodies, they burn to death. At that moment, Shrek discovers how advanced humans have become, how they use technology to survive and protect themselves. Then we see a producer and the scriptwriter confronting Merrill. They tell him that nothing is going according to the script anymore, and they don't understand what kind of movie this even is. Merrill responds by saying, "The way I've envisioned this, in the end, we'll get the result I want." But now Merrill began threatening the producers and writers, saying that he would leave the project midway unless everything went according to his plan. Only then, he said, could the movie become great. The producers and writers felt helpless, because they genuinely trusted Merrill's vision. After all, he had delivered multiple blockbusters in the past. Meanwhile, the cameraman was sweating excessively, a sign that he was undergoing some kind of transformation. Merrill then met Shrek privately, scolding him. He told Shrek that he had never authorized him to harm any crew members. But later, it was revealed that the mysterious man who had given Shrek the bottle was none other than Merrill himself. This meant that from the very beginning, Merrill knew that Shrek was a real vampire, and he had intentionally cast him in the movie. Why? Because Merrill wanted to show the audience a character that was truly real and authentic. In exchange, Merrill had promised Shrek that he would hand over the lead actress, Babe, to him. After that, Shrek could either kill her or drink her blood, it would be entirely his choice. However, despite this deal, Shrek had broken the agreement by attacking the main character and the cameraman. That's why Merrill was furious. But it seemed like Shrek didn't care about any of it. Now Merrill began to wonder whether he had made a mistake casting Shrek. After all, this was his first direct encounter with a vampire. Shrek had the strength to kill all of them if he wanted, yet Merrill was determined to finish the movie at any cost. Shrek, now fixated on Babe's locket, which had her small picture inside, became obsessed. He wanted Babe no matter what. A new shooting location was prepared atop a castle, where a scene involving a ship was to be recorded. The producer and writer sat down together, discussing a Dracula book. Shrek joined them, wanting to take part in the conversation. He first listened in as they shared their views on Dracula. The producer and writer were saying that Dracula isn't real, that such things only exist in books, where they belong. We've been hearing stories about vampires for so many years, but we've never actually seen one. This kind of talk started to make Shrek very angry. In a sudden and bizarre moment, he grabbed a bat and began to eat it raw, something both the producer and writer witnessed in shock. Now Shrek even pulled out alcohol and started drinking, then stormed out of there. As soon as Shrek reached the shooting location, he attacked a crew member, despite Merrill's earlier warning that he should not go near anyone except Babe. But Shrek didn't care. He killed the crew member and threw the body off a ledge. No one had discovered this yet. The next day, everyone moved to the next shooting location. The previous cameraman's health had worsened significantly, so Merrill appointed a new cameraman named Big G. Though Big G wasn't very experienced, he was good enough to keep the shoot going. Everyone gathered again and began working according to the script. Big G even suggested several techniques to Merrill on how to improve the scenes, and everyone greatly enjoyed Big G's presence and enthusiasm. Meanwhile, several scenes between the main character and Shrek were being filmed. In one scene, Shrek was inside a coffin, and the main character had to act scared upon seeing him. Slowly, Shrek would emerge from the coffin. After one scene ended, Big G approached Shrek to get a closer look, curious about how his appearance was turning out. Despite the fact that Shrek had absolutely no makeup on, he still looked incredibly terrifying. Big G laughed upon seeing Shrek's appearance, and this angered Shrek even more. He even told the others to keep Big G away from him. Now the entire crew began filming the ship scene, which involved a swarm of rats emerging. All of these scenes would later be merged into the story to explain how Shrek was born, why he came into this world, and what his ultimate goal was. All of these things would be covered in the movie. But in reality, no one had any idea what Shrek truly wanted in real life. Videos of him were being taken from multiple angles, trying to give him a terrifying look, though Shrek was already frightening by nature, so they didn't need to put in much effort. Finally, it was time to shoot the climax of the movie, for which the beautiful actress Babe was called in. Everyone was excited about her arrival, especially Big G, who flirted with her and tried to impress her. But Babe insulted him and walked away. Meanwhile, we saw Shrek sensing Babe's presence. He could feel her body's aura, and if he wanted, he could attack her and drink her blood. But Merrill immediately rushed to Shrek and told him to calm down, warning that if Shrek killed Babe now, they wouldn't be able to shoot the climax of the movie. Merrill tried to reason with Shrek, but Shrek told him that this movie is no longer under his control. In anger, Merrill lunged at Shrek, but then he realized the terrifying truth: Shrek was a real vampire. If Shrek bit him, Merrill would be dead forever. Terrified, Merrill backed off and left. Now we see the writer talking to the producer, expressing his suspicion that Shrek might be a vampire, because he had seen him catch and eat a bat with ease. But the producer dismissed it, saying, "That's nonsense. We were probably just drunk, and in the dark, things can look strange." Still, the writer started doing a bit of investigating on his own to uncover the truth. But little did he know, he was also doomed. Then we see Big G, who had gone to a hotel room with the script girl, planning to have some fun. Coincidentally, Babe was also staying in the same hotel. After a short while, strange animal-like sounds started coming from Babe's room. Big G abandoned his private meeting and rushed over, entering Babe's room to check what was going on. It turned out, Babe had a habit of screaming in her sleep. She was still asleep, so he quietly left without disturbing her. But unknown to everyone, Shrek had also heard those same sounds, and after everyone left, he sneaked into Babe's room. It seemed like he was planning something sinister. Shrek believed that his plan was finally working, and now he would be able to catch Babe and drink her blood. But Shrek had no idea that Big G and the producer had started to suspect him. They both began to believe that Shrek might actually be a real vampire. Since they knew that vampires cannot survive in daylight, Big G and the producer made a plan together and called Shrek into a room. While the producer distracted Shrek by talking to him, Big G quickly opened a door, letting sunlight pour into the room. As soon as Shrek noticed the sunlight, he immediately ran in the opposite direction, confirming their worst fear: Shrek was indeed a vampire. Shocked, Big G and the producer rushed to confront Merryill, since he was the one who had brought Shrek into the film. After questioning him, Merryill finally revealed the truth: to make an authentic horror movie, he had cast a real vampire. In return, he had promised Shrek that he would hand over Babe. What Shrek did with her, whether he killed her or drank her blood, was up to him. Big G and the producer were horrified, and now, they knew they had to protect Babe at all costs. Shrek could attack her at any moment. So, the producer, Merryill, and Big G all stayed close to Babe, keeping her busy with a different shoot. They couldn't risk telling her the truth, that Shrek intended to kill her, because then they wouldn't get the perfect shot they needed. Merryill convinced everyone that once they got their final climactic scene, they would open the windows and doors of the room to let in sunlight and kill the vampire. Everyone agreed to this plan. Now, Shrek entered the room, and slowly began moving toward Babe, as if he was going to kill her in one strike. Babe, thinking it was all just part of the movie, lay down on the bed, although she was clearly terrified. To make the scene as realistic as possible, Babe was given an injection that would make her unconscious for a short time, allowing the team to execute the plan without her resisting. Because they had received the green signal to shoot, Shrek leapt onto Babe and tried to drink her blood. Merryill kept shooting the scene without stopping. At that moment, the producer and Big G tried to open the doors and windows, but they were shocked to discover that Shrek had already prepared for this. He had locked everything in advance, trapping everyone inside. Shrek truly drank Babe's blood, leaving her barely alive. It seemed like Shrek was going to succeed in his mission, but Big G couldn't just watch Babe get hurt. He immediately pulled out his gun and started firing multiple shots at Shrek. However, to everyone's shock, the bullets had no effect on Shrek's body. He was completely unharmed. Shrek immediately lunged at Big G, and with his sharp claws, he crushed his skull, ending Big G's life instantly. Big G, who had hoped to spend his life with Babe, now lay dead. The producer, terrified after witnessing all of this, tried to flee. But he kept filming and told Shrek that he could do whatever he wanted with Babe, as long as it was part of the movie scene. Now free, Shrek returned to Babe, and he began drinking her blood again. At this moment, the real demon revealed itself inside Merrill's body. Merryill had completely lost his sanity, all for the sake of his movie. He kept filming, convinced that everything happening was real, believing it would engage the audience. Shrek, the vampire, had already taken many lives, and Merryill now had his movie ready. The climax was shot perfectly. But then, a moment later, all the windows and doors were suddenly opened, and sunlight flooded the room, hitting Shrek's body directly. Shrek couldn't control himself, his body began to burn as he shrieked in pain. Finally, he perished, burning to death. In the end, Merryill had recorded it all. He got the unexpected ending for his movie. He hadn't planned for Shrek to die this way, but now that it had happened, he decided to include this in his film. However, it can be assumed that Merrill's obsession with making his movie cost many lives, and the story ends on a chilling note.